Today I want to talk about money and kind of our money scripts and our success scripts around money and how that can impact our paths to purpose. I've been a wealth manager for 30 years. I started my own company 22 years ago, and I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of families with regard to their financial choices they make, but even more importantly, the psychological, unconscious and conscious guiding factors into those choices. So I look forward to sharing a little bit with you all today, and there's so much I could unpack. I'm going to have to try to just narrow it down, and maybe we'll do some subsequent programs. So when it comes to success, it's hard to untangle the financial aspect to it. So many of us have been raised with financial security being a top priority, and oftentimes our programming around money, as I mentioned, could be unconscious. Maybe we didn't have much financial security growing up as a child, and so we really crave that security. Or maybe we just want to have the freedom and the flexibility that we can have with having more financial resources. So there's a lot of programming behind our success scripts and the financial component to it. And so what I hope to do today is help us think about wealth more holistically and to allow us to leap into our purpose path with just a more balanced approach versus just maybe a myopic approach of I have to make money and that's the primary driver. So my story is I grew up in a farming family. Both sets of my grandparents were farmers from South Dakota. I grew up with my mom and dad and brother in Colorado, and while my parents had professional jobs and went on to get their advanced college degrees, we also had a 10-acre farm because my parents wanted us to have the work ethic of what you get when you farm. So we had pigs that we fed and horse stalls to clean and fences to mend and lots of weeds to pull. And so that was a big part of my childhood, was realizing the merit of work ethic. And for whatever reason, I took that to the next level where I started to associate my sense of self-worth and my sense of lovability even with my performative abilities to be productive. Whether that was getting all A's in school, doing well in my sports endeavors, being in student government, working through jobs throughout high school and beyond to help pay for my personal expenses as well as part of my college. I was a taskmaster and I was a doer and a work machine, and I had a lot of pride in that. Can any of you relate to work ethic being one of the primary values instilled in you as a young person? So with this mindset of my productivity being kind of my IQ card, my identity card, I wanted to find a way to amplify it, right? So I just kept going. So in college, I was a double major with honors. I was in student government. I helped start a fraternity. I worked the whole time I was in college. Then I graduated and started my career a week after graduation and wanted to get ahead and compete against my class of other young financial advisors. And this path, worked for me in the traditional sense, right? I had success. I made some money. I got advanced degrees and earned awards. But it was kind of at such a fast pace that I wasn't in touch with who I was. I was just a performance machine trying to achieve more, and not celebrating really my wins along the way. I remember with my girlfriend, who later became my wife at the time, she said one morning, "You don't have a balance, Seth. You just work all the time." And I was reading the LA Times, and I saw that there was an ad for the LA Marathon. So I said, "Oh yeah, I have a balance. I'm going to run the LA Marathon in 5 weeks." And did I run the marathon? Yes. Did it hurt me and have some repercussions to my joints for not having trained properly? Yes, but I checked that box. I used to drink cold soup from the trunk of my car because I didn't want to stop for lunch. I would buy cans of Ensure or drink cold cans of soup just so I could keep going, keep working, because you know what? I had to get ahead. And that kind of frantic pace of trying to achieve worked until it didn't work. So I had my blessing in disguise, I guess we like to think, some of these dark times of life where my health really fell apart. My marriage fell apart. I went through a tough divorce. And my company that I had started 6 years before went through a tough time with a financial crisis. So in a 2-year period of time, I had pretty much all these foundational pieces of success, or so I thought, just get flipped on their head. And that really forced me to wake up And these life events or these life quakes can have that effect on us. So looking back, we can oftentimes celebrate the toughest times in life because that's where we've had huge pivots that really opened us up to where we really wanted to be or meant to be. And I just was speaking to my son's class recently, and I passed out all the students a little piece of red thread. And I went through and was telling my life story of how I thought I was going to get into this school, but I went to that school. I thought I'd be this major, but I got into that major. I thought I was going to be in this relationship, but I got into that relationship. And at the time, all those classes I didn't get into felt like doors that were slammed in my face. But later, I came to realize that they were opening new doors. And you have to trust that red thread, because when we look back with time, we realize that it all happened for a reason. And I like to think about that analogy as being the red thread in our lives. So that big shakeup for me, that 2-year period shakeup, really opened me up on my personal growth path, my spiritual path. And so I dove in and went to Eckhart Tolle retreats and Byron Katie and Pema Chodron, and I learned how to meditate. I went to India, and I just dove in, right? I needed to learn what is fulfillment, what is true success, because I clearly had the wrong operating system. And from that journey, I really thankfully woke up and found a whole new paradigm from which to operate personally and to help support clients. And that paradigm was really around kind of this eye-opening awareness that I gained that, I had plenty of affluent families that had $10 million homes, and they were not fulfilled at all. And then I had taken my kids on service trips during this period where I went down to Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, and we volunteered in orphanages. And we met people that literally had almost nothing from a material standpoint, and yet they seemed fulfilled. They were generous. They had a sparkle in their eyes. And I thought, how is this the case that these people with, $10 million homes are grumpy and controlling and unhappy, and people who literally have almost nothing from a material standpoint seem to be happy? And so that's when I started to create a holistic definition of wealth. I look at wealth across 11 dimensions, and money is one of those dimensions, right? Our income streams and our net worth. That, of course, is an important factor in a life of abundance, but it's not the only factor. So the other 10 dimensions would be your impact, the level of satisfaction you feel with the difference that you're making, maybe in the community, maybe with one child you mentor, or maybe in the world at large. Your physical assets are how your body looks, feels, and functions. Are you happy with how your body looks, feels, and functions? That's your physical dimension of wealth. How much fun do you have? When was the last time you had a deep belly laugh? That's the fun dimension. And your intellectual capital is your mind stimulated? Is it growing? Are you expanding yourself? Or are you doing the same old, same old? The environment in which you live also is a dimension. Are you happy with where you live as far as the country, the state, the city, the neighborhood, the home? Do you need to declutter your home? Would you like to have a bi-coastal living, or simplify your life, or live on a beach in Mexico? So thinking about the environmental dimension is important. And then the social capital, right? The caliber of your friendships in the community. Your family, so the level of connection you have and the quality time spent with those closest to you. Your emotional wealth has to do with kind of your general attitude and your stress levels. And then your career, if you're still working, is, do you feel appreciated for what you do? Do you feel aligned with the work that you do and with the company you're doing it with? That's part of having true abundance. And then finally, your spiritual dimension has to do with your framework, connection to a framework beyond yourself, something that's beyond yourself. So these 11 dimensions is kind of what helped open me up, and it made me look at a broader framework of what actually wealth can be and should be. And so I started to work with clients in this way, and I kind of already had, not knowing I was doing it, but I started to be really intentional. And I talk about a story in my TED Talk where there was a corporate attorney who was super miserable in his career. He had back pain, he was traveling all the time. And through our work together, he ended up following his passion, which was to be a high school history teacher. And by doing that, he was happy to work many more years. He was able to have summers off and travel with his wife, which was her passion. And it really was an amazing change for him to have that permission to make a big pivot away from this higher paying job, which one would think would be more successful, to actually a far greater holistic definition of success in their life and in his health. So when we look at COVID recently, I found that to be a huge accelerator for people to tap into this holistic definition. So while it was definitely tough for many people financially, and I don't want to discount that, a lot of people had to furlough employees if they were business owners. People had to struggle just trying to make ends meet. However, we all had to go through a big change. And that change was we were no longer just commuting like we commuted, working inside the professional office that maybe we worked within, flying around the country, going to meetings. We were home, right? We all were kind of at home trying to get through this time. And in doing so, we made big life changes. A lot of us started to spend more time with family. We maybe picked up new hobbies, learned to play guitar, we took an art class. We started to listen to more podcasts. So we started to learn. Maybe we took walks outside, or we had a chance to garden more, do more puzzles. So a lot of people, when they looked at their life through the pandemic financially, felt like it was a setback. However, if you look at it through the other 10 dimensions, they actually had more abundance as a result of the pandemic. So thinking about money is simply currency. Money is kind of an energy, if you will. It's not who someone is, but it amplifies the person that they are. It amplifies their values and their character. So if someone is fearful, they can put big walls and fences and security systems around them, and they can try to use money as a control device. If someone is very generous, well, then they can use money to create a positive impact in people's lives. And maybe it's as simple as buying groceries for them, the person behind them in line, or maybe it's working with a nonprofit or starting an NGO or doing impact investing. There's a lot of different ways that money can be an amplifier to who we are and even to who we want to be. So when we think about money being an extension of ourselves, yes, there are financial basics that we need to follow, right? So it's, are you living on less than you earn? Are you leveraging the power of compounding interest? Are you maximizing your 401k plans? Are you being smart with taxes and your asset allocation? All of that, yes, is important. But I would say even beyond that is our personal relation and framework with money. Because many of us have self-limiting beliefs when it comes to finances. And again, as I mentioned, it could be due to experiences we had when we were quite young. I wanted to share something I started my TED Talk with was about elephants, and I was always fascinated with elephants. And when you see an elephant, oftentimes at a circus, not that I've been to one in forever, but they have a tiny stake in the ground with a small rope tethered to one of their feet, and that's how the elephant is kept in place. Well, these are 3,000 to 7,000 ton animals, right? They could easily lift their foot and pull that stake out of the ground, but they don't. And why is that? Well, when you look at how elephants are trained, I would say broken, which is really breaks my heart, but they are trained when they're really young by being tethered to very big metal stakes in the ground and chains that they cannot pull out. And they essentially learn that that stake is an insurmountable limit to them. So they never try to pull it out again, even though they could later. So the question that I have for everyone is, in what ways do you have self-limiting beliefs, tethers to stakes that you're not realizing you could easily pull out of your life? And when I think about wealth, I think about how in some ways we get trapped into certain routines and certain mindsets, and our thoughts lead to words, lead to actions, which keep those mindsets, those belief sets continuing on. So we have an opportunity to rewrite that narrative around our relationship with money. And in rewriting that narrative, there is tremendous, tremendous opportunity. So when we think about wealth is really about internal. It's not external. So as I've been talking, it's not the accumulation of things. It's more about our internal gratitude. It's about our internal connection to a framework beyond ourselves, and then money is just a byproduct of that. It's about knowing our priorities, and it's truly living them. And it's about being of service to others, right? It's about impacting others. Wealth is in the joy of giving to others. And that gives us meaning. And so if we appreciate what we have, and if we can find a way to live on less than we have, then by definition, we're already rich. So thinking about wealth in these new definitions really helped me to feel a lot more gratitude in my life. And I hope that as we do some exercises later in this MEA program, it's going to help all of you to maybe expand your perspective of wealth as well. So let me just get back to purpose. When I think about people going through their normal life phases, I came up with a 3-phase framework that seems to have landed well with people. And that is, number one, the 1.0 phase of life is when we get our sense of identity. So when we're younger, typically, and these phases don't always have to be linear, but when we're younger, typically we figure out who we are. Are we the funny person in class? Are we the athlete? Are we the academic? Are we the introvert? Are we the musician? And these identities kind of start to shape us. Well, we get into the 2.0 phase of life. That's when we start our field of study, we start our career, we start to make money, maybe we get married, we have children, we buy a home, we get a mortgage, maybe we start a company. That's the phase of responsibility, right? Our heads are down and we're just like getting kids to school, getting homework done, paying the bills, doing our job, just kind of getting through the motions. And so 2.0 is the phase of responsibility. Well, there does come a time where our kids become more independent, where we've achieved a lot of what we wanted to professionally, and where we start to think about 3.0. And 3.0 is a phase of freedom. So in this phase of freedom, that's when we start to think about that bucket list trip to Bali we've always wanted to take, or that dream of wanting to learn to play guitar. Or maybe we think about rekindling our relationship with our spouse or with our sibling. Or we think about that book we've always wanted to write. So the freedom phase, life 3.0, is when we really get to expand our creative selves and, as I've heard in this program, move those 13 inches from our head to our heart and operate less from a place of ego and more from a place of soul. The challenge is it's hard to move from 2.0 to 3.0 because we have a certain default mindset, an operating system that has served us in that 2.0 phase that may not serve us in the 3.0 phase. So a default mindset is really kind of the learned habits and behaviors that have allowed us to get ahead. So for me, it was like no pain, no gain, right? That's why I was drinking cold soup out of my trunk, because I was going to get ahead. Well, I had to change that framework in order to really get more launched into my 3.0 phase. So the 2.0 phase of life is really around motivation often. And motivation is external. It's about external rewards, external acknowledgments, and it is more ego-fueled. The 3.0 phase is really fueled by inspiration, which is internal. It's more sourced from your soul. It's about following the breadcrumbs of curiosity, as Chip has said. And so I would like to invite everyone to think about your life 2.0 phase that you may be in today, or maybe you're at 2.6 or 2.8, and what it might take for you to get into a meaningful 3.0 phase of life. Now, for me, I have absolutely loved creating retreats around how to design and ignite this life 3.0 phase of life. That's been part of my 3.0, is creating these programs for others, and I just absolutely love it. One of the exercises that I put together is called your inspired life purpose. So the inspired life purpose are 4 circles. So picture 2 circles on top, 2 circles on bottom, and then a circle in the middle that's overlapped by the other 4. And the top circle on the left is your natural gifts. This is what's always come easy to you, your innate abilities. The top circle on the right are your skills. So these are talents or skills that you acquired through work, education, and experience. The bottom left circle are your passions. These are the things that you love to do. If you had all the time and all the money in the world, this is what you'd be doing. And then the bottom right circle are huge trends that you believe are just inevitable. Could be climate change, could be AI, could be driverless vehicles, could be anything. And it's also what the world needs most. So it's kind of trends and what the world needs most. And then where those 4 circles intersect, that is your inspired life purpose. And as we go through an experience later on how to go through that program, I would just invite everyone to think about what purpose is worthy of your life? What purpose is worthy of your life? And that intersection of your gifts, your passion, your skills, and what the world needs most, that might be a cue as to where you could put some energy and reflection to find what that purpose is that is worthy of your life. So I like to think about, and I'm saying this like I figured it out, like I've been on this journey living in my head for so long, and it's been such a long journey from my 13 inches from my head to my heart. I'm tall, so maybe it's 14 inches. But I've really been working on tapping into what I call my inner guidance system, which is really from my heart. So rather than the SWOT analysis of always making decisions from my brain, I am now, when I'm thinking about a new project with my company, a new potential hire, a new initiative, a new community building program, I try to tap in and say, is my inner guidance system leaning into this opportunity? So being able to kind of trust your knowing versus your thinking, I find has been a very helpful tool for me to kind of ideate what my purpose might be. Because I'm sure some of you here are like, I don't know what my purpose is. I just know it's not working another 20 years doing what I'm doing. So maybe just try that. Tap into and cultivate your inner guidance system. It's really helped me to continually try to breathe into that space of knowing versus just living here, which I've lived plenty of time in residence there. So, our industry, the financial services industry, is really evolving, and I'm really grateful that there's more kind of life-centered coaching programs and values-based planning programs out there. So I'd encourage you to speak to your advisors about that, because that can really be also a great support network for you to bring more consciousness with your financial decisions. And that goes with, how you spend money, how you invest money, how you give it away, and how and why you work for it, and to what degree you need to keep working for it versus finding that more aligned path. So I just wanted to say thank you all. I know I just tried to put a lot out there because I'm trying to keep this short, but it truly does excite me to imagine each of us not just chasing dollars, but living more from our authentic calling and being true, to our values, and trusting that holistic wealth will follow when we are true to those values. And, imagine each of us coming alive in this place of operating from love, from our natural expression of self versus for love, trying to get that external motivation or that external extra dollar. And if we do so, that will allow our inspired life purpose to radiate more brightly into the world. And to me, that's true abundance. So thank you all for allowing me to share. And I want to close with one of my favorite quotes by Howard Thurman. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and then go do it. Because what the world needs is people who come alive. Thank you.